Welcome back to Drive Your Thoughts podcast. I'm your host, Master Coach Carrie Marshall, and it's time to go after those goals.
Yeah, whether ready or not, life's coming hard, no breaks, no stop. And if you put me on the spot, don't get it twisted, I never drop. If you feel a bit out of control and out the box, here's a way that you could drive your thoughts. Turn this podcast on, it's a lock. Carrie Marshall on the clock.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm so excited today. We have one of my favorite people in the world. Steve Lyman is here. Hey, Steve, what's up?
Hey, thank you, Carrie. Appreciate it.
Fun fact before I have Steve introduce himself, Steve and his wife, Tracy, we have all been friends for decades. Steve and Curtis, my husband, have been friends for almost their whole life.
Yeah.
Junior high.
Yeah.
So we've had a really fun friendship, but my most fun thing is that they come every single summer and spend some time with our family. So I'm so excited to have Steve in my basement. So Steve, kind of introduce us to you. Who are you? What do you do?
Well, yeah, first and foremost, I mean, you make our going to Utah easy.
Oh,
in the sense
so
that
easy.
We come
right?
and hang out and eat all of your food and hang out with your kids.
Steve brings us donuts every day. So, I mean, every morning my kids wake up to donuts when Steve's here. And that's actually how they know that Steve's
here. Yeah. I gotta keep them excited about the fact that we come in and bombard and hang out at your house for several days every summer. So sorry, what was your question again?
Who are you?
Oh yeah. Who am I? Oh yeah. Steve. Well, yeah, I mean, first and foremost, married with 4 kids and, first and foremost, the priorities, obviously, my family and my that relationship for sure. But most of my background over the course of the last 20 years has really been in the online marketing, coaching, consulting, helping business owners to be able to scale and grow their business. Currently, been helping, I don't know if the digital marketers out there that listen to your guys' podcast, but work with a client called Tier 11. They're a big ad agency where we run a lot of paid advertising for coaches and consultants. I'm the VP of growth for those guys. I'm in the kind of a transition period of time where I'm starting another business, but really my background has always been anything to do with lead generation, sales, scaling and growing sales organizations, kind of my background on the professional standpoint.
And the thing that I've really loved about being able to watch you personally is having you kind of be able to teach me a little bit about high ticket sales, which has been really cool to be able to see the process through that. And so I know that that's something that you're not only have a ton of experience in, but then you also have a passion in coaching other people and showing other people how to do it. So that's been really cool to kind of watch you do that. And I've absolutely benefited from it.
I appreciate it. Yeah, no, it's kind of funny. Like, I always tell people like, hey, I'm not great at a lot of things, but like this one particular area is like really my zone of genius. And that's like when I'm working with like a coach or consultant, somebody that's selling like a product or service, typically anywhere between $5,000 and upwards of like $20,000. The funnel process and then the sales process that has to happen in order for, that person to really increase their overall conversion rates, how well they do at their entire sales processes, show up, all of that kind of stuff. It just so happens to be what I've been doing for the last 20 years. And so it's really fun to go in. I had a client that I just started working with actually about a week ago. And these guys are... this guy is amazing. So first off, he teaches people how to become a coder, and then he actually helps place them in a job as an actual coder.
Oh, that's
the guy's
awesome.
Amazing at what he does. He's got an insane guarantee. He's got a 94% success rate. He guarantees that he'll get everybody placed. Here's this guy that has this actual amazing program, and he's very, very good at what he does, but he wasn't really like a sales guy. And he was like a marketer completely second, where a lot of the times you'll see people in the coaching consulting space, and they're actually marketers first and okay at what they do second, if that makes sense. Like they're better at marketing and advertising their product or service, which is sometimes unfortunate. This guy was actually better at his deliverables, but he was horrible at his sales processes. And it was kind of crazy because I looked at it and I was like, I listened to a few of their sales calls and I listened to what they were actually doing. And I was just like, okay, time out. Here's why you're going to hire me. Here's what you're going to pay me. And here's the result. Like in my little zone of genius, like I know what's going to end up happening. And it's been pretty fun. We've now actually been working with them for like 2 weeks, have multiple sales reps already hired, trained. I think the closing conversion rate is at like 50% now of all the appointments that they actually have. And they're growing pretty quick. And so when you have the right offer and you have some of the marketing, especially in the coaching consulting space, if you don't have the right processes on the sales side, it doesn't matter how good your service is, but I don't know, I get excited about those kind of processes because it's like, okay, I see exactly what has to happen. And anyway, I get excited about those kind of processes.
Well, and it's cool that you tell it like that it's your zone of genius. I think that that's sometimes where, as an entrepreneur, I know I've got stuck.
Yeah.
Is that we feel like we have to be the jack of all trades.
Yeah.
And so then we get stuck trying to figure out how to do this and how to do that. And so then we kind of piece it all together where I know I'm a really good coach. That's my zone of genius.
Yeah.
But then when I do go to do the sales call or look at a funnel, I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of, once again, finding another person that has a zone of genius and saying like, oh, Steve's my guy. Steve can help me learn how to do sales in a really great way where it is just a process. Because I know that a lot of people, at least in the coaching industry that I've seen, they get stuck getting a lot of I'm either good or bad, right?
Yeah.
Instead of looking at it's a process.
Yeah.
You either have a good process or maybe you have a process that's not working for your people. But where do you see that people get the most stuck when they are having problems in sales with their businesses?
Yeah, no, good questions. So a lot of times where people get stuck when it comes to sales, it's a couple different areas. So the first area that they actually get stuck is the pre-framing of what happens prior to the actual sell.
Okay. Kind of talk us through that.
Yeah. So oftentimes, I just so happen to have a lot of experience in like the coaching consulting space. So anybody selling some sort of like, for instance, I do all of the sales for our agency, which is a done for you product. People come to us, they pay us to run their paid advertising. They pay us $15, $20. We have a client we just enrolled that's paying us $80,000 a month to run all of their paid advertising. Okay. That sell is a little bit different because it's a service. It's a done for you basically service and process. On the coaching consulting side, you've got all of these different options. You've got, people that will do one-on-one coaching, people that will do group coaching, people that do retreats, boot camps. At the end of the day, what they're doing is they're selling an experience and time with them to be able to provide them an outcome,
right? Whether
that's on the business side or personal development or relationship side, whatever it may be. So the first part where people really get stuck has to do with what I call the funnelytics aspect of it, which is really the first part. It's their consumption of what they actually consume prior to going into the actual sales presentation, right? So a lot of the times you'll see pretty popular funnel processes out there in the online marketing space. You'll see people, over the last 5 years, what's transitioned is people will send a lot of paid advertising towards like a webinar or a 30-minute VSL or some sort of product that they'll purchase, and then they'll drive them into scheduling a call. What's happened in the online marketing space over the last 5 years is that consumption or the attention span of the consumer doesn't really want to sit on an hour and a half webinar. So what's happening is people are doing a lot more engaging short, what we would consider like a mini VSL, like 5-10 minutes long, drive them into actually booking a scheduled call. But then what ends up happening is they increase the consumption of what the person is actually consuming from an educational standpoint prior to the call. So that it's actually the same amount of consumption as if you were to have sat through an hour and a half webinar. So what happens is that where people get stuck is they oftentimes don't pre-frame the value of the call, what's going to happen on the call, and most importantly, what's actually in it for the person that's going to attend the call.
Right.
Right. Because most people are pre-wired. They know, hey, look, I get on a call with somebody. This is going to be a sales presentation.
Right.
They can call it a consulting call or whatever it may be, but they kind of know like, hey, I'm interested in this. Somebody's going to get on the phone with me and we're going to talk about the economics and whether it's a good fit. Well, if that person can, prior to that call, educate the prospect about who you work with, who you don't work with, what specific outcomes that you accomplish with the clients that you take and work with. And then you're able to collapse time for them by saying, hey, we do these things, here's who we work with, and we specialize in getting these kind of results within this period of time. If that's not you, we may not want to do the call. If it is you, then we're going to create a game plan. So the first step and first problem is the consumption period. Like as an example, I was talking to you earlier about this group that was coding. Like they're what I call their call prep page. I call it a call prep page. So after they book, it's the information that they actually consume prior to the actual call. That needed to be reworked and positioned in a way that answered a lot of those questions in the consumer's mind so that they are actually, going into, sorry, if I'm going off here a little bit, but they're going into the conversation with a way better understanding of what's in it. And this is super important, what's actually in it for them. And that's why they're going to actually show up and they're going to attend, and your show up rates are going to be good from a sales process. So first part is dialing in that.
Well, I love that you just walked us through that, because I do see that some of my clients who are in that space are saying, oh, I don't have any sales calls this week. And it's like, well, what's going on for you? Why are people consuming? What are your analytics telling us?
Yeah.
But like you just mentioned, it's like, well, what are they actually being able to see? And even from like a business standpoint,
yeah.
If you're looking around at your brick and mortar business and there's nobody in there, it's like, well, what do people know about you?
Yeah.
What is the consumption of what you're actually offering people right now, and where are they getting it to? So
yeah,
that's cool. I like being able to look at that so that you can say like, what are they consuming? Mm-hmm. But I think that is huge to be able to say, what are they getting on that sales call?
Yeah.
Because I do think, I just was actually on a sales call the other day, and it was interesting to see how they approached it. I got done with it and I thought, I think I just did more coaching through their sales process of like, no, you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
And I got done and I'm like, I said no. I'm like, I actually don't know what I'm going to get from you guys.
Yeah.
So I think letting people know this is what you can expect. Like you said, a roadmap, a game plan, we're going to get you, we're going to say if you're a fit or not, give you the next steps. If, like I always tell people, I'm either going to be your coach or I'm going to help you get to your coach.
Yeah.
We're either a good fit and it's going to be a let's go, and I'm going to give you some things to do until we work together, or I'm going to give you some referrals because I just spent time with you. I want to make sure that you're on the right path to get the coach that you need.
Yeah.
And so,
well, you know why that statement is so powerful is because what you've done is you've pre-framed the options for the person. There's two different options here.
Yep.
Okay. Either I'm going to come up with a game plan where I'm going to help you specifically walk you through how I'm going to help you reach your goals, or I'm going to make some suggestions on where you should actually go or who you should actually work with that's in your best interest.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden that croctilia brain in the back of their mind, that now they're getting the prospect or the person that you're actually speaking with is getting laser focused, right, on, okay, one, there's a potential out for me if Carrie can't help me with my problem, she's going to send me in the right direction. If she feels like she can help me, here's the game plan in how she's going to walk me through. But either way, there's a clear direction. What's not a part of that direction is, okay, then I'm going to tell you to go spend the next 30 days thinking and praying and in meditation as to what to do. You've actually created a pathway for them to make decisions, which is super important.
And I love that. I love being able to make decisions fast and then say, which one do you want?
Yeah.
And I find that with my own life, if I can make decisions fast, it doesn't matter. I can then go from there, start taking action towards something. So,
yeah.
So when you're talking about the sales process and you're going into these companies to help them, number one, sell their products, but then also sometimes hire sales teams, train sales teams. From your perspective, where do you think that big companies get it wrong that you see over and over again?
Yeah. So most companies, so first off, like most companies don't have, so they're not set up to be able to scale. Okay. So what ends up, most companies, they don't have an onboarding system or process to be able to help a sales rep. Because there's two things that are actually happening. Number one, the business owner needs to get that salesperson hitting KPIs or hitting their goal metrics as fast as possible.
Right.
So that they're actually profitable for the business by actually hiring that individual. And then the second thing that that's going against them is the fact that that sales rep also needs to start making money fast in order for them to be engaged, excited, and continue to want to stay there from an organizational standpoint. And that all has to do with what the companies put together as far as their SOPs, processes, and their initial onboarding documentation to one, make it super simple and easy for that new sales rep to understand the processes and what the value offer is for the business. They understand very quickly what the tech stack, what they have to do from an SOW standpoint, and it gets them trained. So their lack of ability to get them trained up quick and hitting numbers, and then also making sure that the sales rep is actually making money. Because it's like, look, if I can get somebody, a brand new sales rep, up, going, making money, a couple $1,000s on a weekly basis, fast, and they're doing all of the systems and processes correct that we need them to from an organizational, they're going to be super stoked about the opportunity. They're willing to work harder to be able to stay on one of my sales teams. And the business owner thrives faster because we haven't gone through a lot of paid advertising or spend to drive a ton of book scheduled calls without that person actually monetizing those sales processes. So it's the start is incredibly important. That's where people screw it up.
I just recently went to do some, what would you call it? It wasn't negotiation, but it was basically like helping a company that was having a problem with their sales team. You know, the sales team was unsatisfied. They were losing people a lot. And so they called me in like, hey, we just need some help figuring out what's going on from a mental standpoint. Cause I don't know anything, you know, I'm not Steve Lyman, but I do know something about, you know, your mindset. Sure. And so I was like,
which
oh,
is
okay.
Sales. Yeah.
Right. So we were talking about mindset. We were walking through, I was, you know, meeting with different people on the sales team. And it was interesting because what I realized when we were doing this and, you know, went and talked to the VP about it was the fact that these sales guys were having too long with the onboarding process. And so what they were doing was getting really good at selling. They were enthusiastic. They liked the product. But then when it went to how do we onboard, there wasn't the SOP, there wasn't the system set up where they could do it fast. And so then these sales guys were spending too much time with this customer trying to set up. But it was interesting to see the different mindsets about it, you know, of this is taking us too long. This is
okay. So the group was having a problem at the point of sale onboarding people.
So they did get the point of sale.
Okay.
It would be the onboarding, right? Like, okay, now coming, and it was the sales guys were like, I'm having Sally call me 3 weeks later asking me if I have this and this instead of calling support, right?
Yeah.
And instead of calling this person and saying like, well, I did the sell. And so it was really muddy where the handoff was.
Yeah.
And so these sales guys were spending so much time with these people that they had liked, you know, sold to. They wanted to feel like they were in integrity with the sell.
Yeah.
And so they were doing a lot of the support. And so that was really interesting though, to see that as soon as the sales team, we kind of all met together after we kind of figured this out, sat down with everybody. And the VP basically was like, you're right. This is a mess. They cleaned it up and they were able to actually retain a lot of their sales guys after that. But it's just interesting to be able, like you said, to have that, that gift, that place of like, I can see sales so good that, you know, you probably would have gone in and been like, oh, I can see exactly what this is.
Yeah. Sales, people that love sales, there's some characteristics, right?
Tell me what those are, because I struggle loving sales. So what are the characteristics that make people love sales?
So I don't want to say that all salespeople are wired the actual same from like a personality standpoint,
Okay.
because I think that there's a big misconception on. Now, I tend to have high energy. I'm wired that way. I'm energetic, all of those kind of things. I've had sales reps that have worked with me that were kind of introverts, right? They weren't high energy. But there's some underlining areas that are all similar inside of, at least from what I've experienced, great salespeople.
Okay.
So number one, connection, rapport, and fulfillment is super important to them, that they're actually selling something that they feel like they're having a big difference. The second one is that they have to be somewhat competitive.
Okay.
From my observations, here's what I've experienced over the last 20 years is that there's a kind of a point of where you've made a good amount of money from, your sales, let's say that week or that month or whatever it may be. The best sales reps, they're doing things at a higher level. They're motivated higher than just the actual financial aspect. Mm-hmm. They want to have a bigger impact. They want to influence more people that they can come across. They're competitive within the sales organization. They want to be the best. And part of the reason why sales is what it is, where everybody can see the numbers, everybody can see where they're actual at. Part of my personality is that once I actually made the kind of money that I wanted to actually make, the bigger driver of why I was willing to actually go above and beyond is I wasn't going to see my name at the bottom of the list.
Yeah,
ever.
for sure.
I wanted to be the top sales rep at all time.
Yeah.
And so I think great salespeople are wired in the sense that they want to compete, they want to grow, they want to continue to hone their craft, but at the same time, if the other components of they want to impact and improve people's life, those are the people that really excel from a characteristic standpoint inside of sales. So those are, I always look to hire and train those kind of individuals. Those are the characteristics.
So a lot of times, kids are coming into sales either in high school or in college is usually where we see it is, a lot of kids in college. So when you're kind of looking at these younger guys that are coming into sales, what are you just looking to see if they're competitive? Let's say they've never had any sales at all. So how do you find or kind of help figure out if this kid's going to be good at sales or not? Or is it just kind of a trial by fire?
Well, no, part of if you're hiring people for a sales organization, what I want to see is I don't necessarily care so much about, I care way more about their energy. I care way more about their internal, why, what do they want? Because just like we talked about earlier, if we can make it about, say I'm a coach or consultant and I'm making everything about what they want in my marketing and advertising, what's in it for them. The same thing has to do with a sales organization. What's in it for them? What's in it for the sales? Is it just a paycheck? I don't want somebody that's just here for a paycheck. Mm-hmm. I want somebody that's here to learn specific skill sets. Mm-hmm. I tell every sales team this, look, if you're selling here for the next couple of years, fantastic. If you're here in 10 years, I'll fire you. I want you to go on and do bigger and better things. Learn sales as a skill set. Especially for entrepreneurs. If you're young, we were kind of talking about the younger demographic. If the statistics behind it, something like 68, 70% of most entrepreneurs come from a sales background. Mm-hmm. And so there's, especially in business, and particularly from my world, from a digital marketing, the digital space, there's two skill sets that you have to have. You have to be able to, technically there's three. There's advertising, marketing, and there's sales. advertising and marketing can kind of be lumped in, but they're actually separate. Okay. In my opinion, the most valuable component has to do with the sales aspect, because it doesn't matter how good your marketing and advertising actually is if you can't close and convert and make sales. Okay. So from a skill set standpoint, if a younger person is wanting to become an entrepreneur, in my opinion, the most valuable skill set that they can actually learn to have is to understand sales psychology, understand first, how to connect the dots between what the prospect actually wants and their product or service. So that means they're going to have to learn the skill sets of actually active listening, active question answering, which is the most important aspect inside of sales. So for a young person, what I'm looking for, if they're wanting to get in sales and I'm interviewing them, I'm going to start kind of like first and foremost with their why. What is it that they want to accomplish? Why do they want to learn how to actually sell? Then I'm going to ask them, okay, well, what makes you feel like you'd actually be good at sales? How do you handle setbacks? How do you handle some of these, what is going to end up happening? They're going to have up and down weeks. Like, how do you handle when you're on top? How do you handle when you're down and you have a crap? Give me some examples of how you've accelerated. But really what I'm looking for in that entire process, and there's probably an SOW that needs to be created, but I'm really at the end of the day, besides all these questions, I'm really looking for their energy and how they communicate, and how I'm judging based off of how well do I think that they're, one, are they committed to it? Do they really want to learn the skill set? And then how well are they going to do at setbacks? How well are they going to, are they going to rebound when they have, a few calls back to back that don't go very well? Are they going to get frustrated and want to throw in the towel? Or are they going to pick themselves back up and want to rebound? So it's not a very scientific way of actually recruiting. I've just done it for so long that I can get a pretty good sense, like out of the gate from that person's energy, as to whether or not I feel like they'd be a good fit for whatever I'm hiring for.
Which I think it goes back to, since we're both parents, I think about my own kids and I'm like, this is why, we always talk about fail fast.
Yeah.
And then learning, failure is feedback is always what I tell my kids. And so I think that having our kids understand that that's what we're setting them up for. We're setting them up for the obstacles because they're going to come. But then can you be accountable to those obstacles? Meaning, if you're a salesperson, are you hiding?
Yeah.
Are you hiding from selling? Are you hiding from your boss? Are you hiding from the accountability? Or are you going in and saying, hey, I just had a pretty crappy week. Here are the numbers. Here's the recordings. What can I learn from this? And here's what I perceive myself as what I can learn. But then is there anything that you're hearing that I'm not? I mean, I think about that from, a sales training. I'm like, let's hire 20 of those guys, right?
Yeah.
If we could teach our kids those types of things, I think it's really important to be able to say like, hey, this is part of it. I know your kids are, you have 16, almost 15.
She just turned 15.
16, 15, and then is it 11?
11 and 7.
11 and 7.
Yeah.
I know your kids are really competitive at sports, JiuJitsu, soccer, track and field. So there's a lot of failure in sports.
100%.
So that's got to be kind of a great place to kind of teach your kids like, hey, yeah, failure happens.
Oh, yeah.
And now what?
Yeah. No, it's funny because like, as a dad and as, competitive, I think that everybody wants their kid to do like amazing, but I actually look at sports as, sports was always a very big part of my life growing up, but the reason that I actually want my kids to stay active inside of sports is to understand the actual fail side of things, right? And I think there's so many parallels to sports and youth and kids towards playing sports and life in general. It's like, hey, work ethic, what you put in is what you're going to get. It's not always going to go your way. How well you actually rebound.
Team dynamics, working with other people. How well do you own your own stuff? Like, hey, if it didn't go your way, like, my son would get into these, this routine of like, oh, we should have beat that team. We're so much better than team. Yeah, but you didn't.
you know, and you didn't because you guys didn't want it more than they did. And those are like the tough conversations that they don't like after obviously a loss.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, you got to kind of own it, you know, hey, it did not go my way today. Here's how I'm going to show up different. And it's that learning that you learn from those ups and downs that then, you know, kind of transitioned. I've got my butt kicked in business a number of different times, but then I've been like, all right, what's next?
Yeah.
What do we go do now? You know? Yeah.
I had a kid on social media. I put out like a ask me anything. And he said, you know, why didn't we win our state champion soccer game? And I know this kid personally. And I said, you know, I don't know about the soccer playing. I'm not a soccer expert, but I do know that all I heard you say up to the state finals was, we're going to go to state. I said, not once did I hear you ever say that you were going to win. And I said, so you did what you went out to do. You went to state. I said, and those other guys, guess what? They went the year before and got their butt kicked. And so guess what they were focused on this year? They were focused on winning.
Winning state.
Yeah. And so I said, so maybe next year when you get to state, you'll focus on winning instead of just going.
Yeah.
But I do think that it is interesting to notice how we talk to our kids about failure, because it would be so easy for either of us to be like, you're right, buddy, you should have been there. You guys are so much better, instead of having those conversations of, no, you didn't want it. You know, you did this, or, you know, what were you accountable for on that field today? And, you know, I think that that's really crucial for our kids to learn. Yeah. I love going to dance competitions where my kids don't do great, honestly. Like Stormy did her first year of solos and she did it okay.
Yeah.
But there were several times where she didn't get her medal or she didn't. And it was really great to then be able to have those conversations with her and be like, well, what do you think? You know, what's your feedback for yourself? What is your coach telling you? What's your choreographer telling you?
Yeah.
Oh, well, she said that I didn't do this transition and I should have done my cartwheel really tight. And I said, what did she tell you to work on a month ago?
Yeah.
My cartwheel.
Yeah.
Like, okay, what are we doing? You know?
Yeah.
So I think it's really cool for our kids to be able to work through that and have that accountability on that other side.
Well, and some sports are better at that accountability. I mean, I'm just sitting there thinking about dance is very similar in the sense of like, part of the reason why I love our kids doing jiu-jitsu. It's like, hey, if you're dancing and you're up there on stage, there's no hiding.
No hiding.
Everybody can see what you're actually doing. When it's a team environment, basketball, football, soccer, you can play okay. I mean, if you don't play good, you're going to get noticed, right? But you can blend in a little bit better.
You can also get pulled out, right? Like that's one thing with soccer, like watching Ocean play soccer. Like if she's not playing well, they just take her out.
Yeah.
But with dance, they cannot take you out. And especially if you're doing a solo, just like jiu-jitsu.
Exactly.
You don't have, you're not tapping out. You're not like tag teaming.
Yeah.
It is you on the mat with another person.
Yeah. And especially for like our youngest one, is why I love, you know, jiu-jitsu, especially for, you know, our kids is, you know, Bodie, our youngest son, absolutely, like he is so pumped up about medals. I mean, these leagues that he competes in, they give these huge medals and he's about the reward. Like the first medal that he won, like wore it the next day to church. Like he rocked it that whole weekend. Right. And so he wants to win. He wants the medal. He wants the reward, which is fine. You know, that's okay. But jiu-jitsu in particularly, you know, when they go, it's you and the other guy on the mat or the other girl, and you're exposed. And when you don't win, it's that hard reality. There's no participation, you know, medal. It's, hey, if you want to continue this, and this is what Bodie, because it's like he doesn't always love to go to practice, but he wants to go to the competitions. So it's been good for him. He's gotten humbled a couple different times where it's like, okay, cool. Well, did you, just out of curiosity, did you practice every day going into this tournament? No. Well, why would you expect to win? Right? So we have to have those conversations. Now the tone of the practice is different because it's working up towards something. And fortunately, that's how it is in life in general, if you don't put in the work.
It's really good though for them to, have that experience. And I've watched it happen with our kids then to take it from, sports to then school to then jobs to, and it just continues to kind of build. And I'm like, yeah, this is the foundation.
Yeah.
Like this is the foundation of how we set up this. So let's kind of go back to how you started selling. What was like the very first thing that you had a job with sales?
Oh, funny. So the very first thing that I sold, it was really, I think I was like 20. And, in reality, here's my first sales job. Okay. Now talk about inventory and supply and demand, really good margins. Okay. I think I was 6, me and my buddy, Jeff Seastrand, we went and into his backyard was this huge cherry orchard. And what we did is we picked a ridiculous amount of cherries, washed them, bagged them up, and went door to door selling these cherries. So there's some pretty big lesson learners, as you could imagine, coming up here. 1, we learned that if we had a product that people wanted, and 2, if we were willing to actually go to people that actually wanted them, and we were willing to ask for the money, and we were willing to not get discouraged and keep on going, people were going to actually say yes. It was a numbers game. So we learned that lesson. But then we learned another very important lesson. Obviously I came home with a bag of money, and it sounds like my dad's like, okay, cool. Where did you get that? Where did you get that money from? And I was like, yeah, we just picked them in the backyard. We just picked these cherries in the backyard of his. Then we went out and sold them. He's like, okay, cool. Well, were those your trees? I'm like, well, no, but they're just cherry trees. We just went and picked them. And so then the harsh reality of, okay, well, these aren't yours. There's a farmer that spent a lot of time and energy. And then, I had to walk over there with him, and I had to go knock on this guy's door and then, tell him what I did. And then I returned the money to him and had to have that conversation. And so that was an important lesson learner. So yeah. If you steal a product and sell it, apparently you can make a lot of money from it. But
on the flip side,
it's not a very good idea. Yeah. So,
but like you said, like learning a little bit about going out and being able to make money, I think is really actually really, it's like Bodie getting that medal, right? I watched my kids do that with a lemonade stand. Bless all of my neighbors, by the way, for putting up with lemonade stands for so long. But I really believe that my kids should, number one, do the work themselves. So 100%. I'm not in the kitchen making cookies. And it shows. I mean, the crap that shows up on that lemonade stand since they were 6 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Some of it has been atrocious.
Oh, yeah.
But it was really good for them to be like, would you eat that? No. Okay. So why are you selling it to the neighbor? Right. But it's been good lessons of them, like figuring out, like their very best year that they ever did, they made almost $1,000.
Wow.
Doing glitter tattoos.
That's hilarious.
And they worked the neighborhood, and then they'd push their lemonade stand that turned into a tattoo parlor down to the next block, and they worked probably a 10-block area and made almost $1,000 doing glitter tattoos.
It's awesome. Yeah.
But it was a cool thing for them to figure out, like, oh, you know what? We actually don't like making cookies and we're not really good at it. Well, what's next? What's the thing that's ours that we can do that's different from everybody else? So it's been really fun to watch them through the years do it.
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to, we're pushing Austin's starting this trash cleaning business. Because, I'm not a big fan of my kids going and getting a job flipping burgers while they're in high school. Because I don't think that sure, they're going to learn some corporate, fast food,
showing
management,
up for a job.
showing up.
Yeah.
There's some lessons there to be learned. But the lessons we want to instill into our kid is like, hey, you know, at least what I want my kids to learn is like, hey, you can get paid what you're willing to put out if you have the right product, right? So just showing up and getting $10 an hour, is that worth your time, or can you maximize your time and your effort? So we're trying to get them thinking in those terms, because that's what inevitably spurs on, you know, entrepreneurship. And I'd rather have him hustling and making money and learning how to interact and sell, having that valuable lesson of sales as a base, before just, you know, hey, here's your Big Mac or whatever it may be. So that's a business that we're pursuing, where he has to knock on doors, talk to people, then clean their trash can,
and deliver,
you know, deliver value. Texas, it gets incredibly hot. So by, you know, June or July, those trash cans, it doesn't matter. Like everyone, they just stink. They stink outside. So, you know, it's something that everybody needs, you know, go door to door and sell it for, you know, $20 a pop. And
well, and it's something that people,
I was
going to say, and it's something that people want over and over again, right?
Yeah.
So then you have the
repeatable
business.
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
It was funny. So our oldest has a job that, you know, she's very much like, I have to get on the calendar, and like she works one shift every 2 weeks. It's, you know, and so we kind of told her the same thing. We're like, find something to do. You know, my dad shows up, shows her how to fix sprinklers. Really great service, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, and she is scared to death to go and tell people that she can help fix sprinklers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you could do it. I'm like, you know how? And she's like, but I have to go and talk to people. And I'm like, but it is interesting to kind of see where she was willing to go to. You know, she's willing to learn from grandpa. She's willing to do the work. She found it interesting, actually.
Yeah.
You know, it's a problem. It's messy for a minute. You get wet, but she's like, but I liked it. She fixed all of our sprinklers at our house. Yeah. And now she's terrified to go and do it for anybody else.
Well, it's why that sales skill set. It's like, you can be great at something that you can be good at something that people need, fixing sprinklers. She now knows how to actually do it. Like me, I don't want to go out and fix my sprinklers. If I had hey, yeah, here's $20, $30.
Totally.
But it's getting out of the comfort level on sales. As soon as they can master being okay with somebody telling them no, you know, and building up a little bit of like, you know, callous as far as from a human interaction standpoint, it's probably more valuable than just about any other skill set that you can learn. Because it's like, hey, if I can go knock on a door and ask somebody if I can fix their sprinklers, well, you know, I can do a lot of things down the road in life, especially when somebody really needs my product or service. So
why do you think that no's so hard?
Well, I think, you know, I don't, what I'm seeing, and I'm not like a, you know, by far like a child psychiatrist and stuff like that. But, you know, I think I'm kind of concerned about a lot of, you know, newer generation, you know, my kids, and, you know, I try, you know, I think like a lot of parents, I probably don't do as good of a job as I do, but limit the amount of like social media, tablets, you know, phones and stuff like that. Because, you know, I grew up being outside, playing with my friends, having to interact with parents. A lot of kids nowadays, I'm using nowadays like I'm so old and stuff like that. But
we're super old, by the way.
We're super old. In my time. No, but like if they're missing that human element. So what's happened is that it's like, you know, I guess early on in life, like, you know, just through interactions and stuff like that, you know, doing everything from, you know, one year I you know, wanted to go on this baseball trip. So my we had this like sister, you know, her last name was Cook that lived in our neighborhood. And she was the most amazing, you know, this Filipino lady. And she made these like insane, like, egg rolls, you know, fried egg rolls or whatever it may be. So she was notorious in our neighborhood because she'd make them and give them to people for like Christmas and stuff like that. So I asked her like, hey, how do you make these? She taught me how to make these egg rolls. I made these egg rolls, like dozens of them. And then I went around and actually like sold them. and that's what raised the amount of money when I was 12 to go to this AAU baseball tournament in Nebraska. So that was, but I think what's going on is that, because, a lot of kids haven't had a lot of they're having less and less, I think, human interactions. The vulnerability of becoming no, where I was just like, oh yeah, whatever. You don't want to, okay, fine. Next, who else wants one?
Right.
But then again, it doesn't really, whether that age and tablets and social media and all that kind of stuff is playing a factor into it. I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist, but it's hard for anybody from a human psychology standpoint to be told, yeah, no, I don't. Like, if somebody internalizes that or takes it or can take it personal or whatever it may be, that's, and everybody does it to a degree. I don't care how good you are at actual cells, but it's how thick your skin is on just like moving on and going to the next and not letting it, affect you is really the lesson that has to be learned. So,
well, I even think about just the simple act of asking if your friend could play. You either have to go over to their house and knock on their door and talk to mom or dad or another sibling, or you have to call them on the home phone. That then once again, you're definitely not getting your friend maybe the first time.
Yeah.
You have to talk to mom and you're going to maybe get some no's, right? I remember one of our friends, I'd call and say, can Lena play? And her mom would say, not right now, unless you want to come over and help her clean her room. And I'd be like, I'll be right over.
Yeah.
But it's that interaction of like, how often are our kids? I just think about my kids that have phones, and it's like, there's some friends I don't think I've ever talked to ever. And they're just texting back and forth, right? And I'm oh yeah, interesting. Interesting that they don't have to. And then they do this big thing where it's a group chat. So they're not even saying like, hey, Steve, do you want to come over to my house? It's like, hey, who wants to come over?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, is anybody coming over? I don't know.
I really try to force my kids into having relatively awkward conversations. Like at the gas station, if my kid's with them and like the person says, the person that's cashiering like is saying anything, like I'm going to make my 7-year-old like, well, what do you say? And like have a conversation. Like I force my kids into awkward conversations because I think that just builds up a little bit of like sales mental toughness, if that makes sense. I remember being, 21 and my like world changed when I first got my first cell phone. We were, it's just kind of crazy because, I remember, in high school, I didn't have a cell phone.
Yeah, no.
Now everybody has a cell phone, obviously.
No, but we definitely didn't have cell phones.
We didn't have cell phones.
No.
So it's like, yeah, you wanted to call or talk to a girl? Yeah, you had to call their landline. Oftentimes you had to talk to the mom or dad or whoever was, hey, is so-and-so there? Hey, good to talk to you, whatever it may be.
Yep.
There's no way my boy is going to call whatever. If he had to call a landline, talk to some girl's dad. He's going to do it. So I don't know, force your kids into having uncomfortable conversations is just, resilience that they got to build up one way or another, for sure.
Well, it's interesting. Like that's one of the things that my mom actually says about your oldest son is she says that she remembers very distinctly the first time that he came over to her house. We were all hanging out, probably barbecuing or something. And Austin came right in, introduced himself, and said, thank you for having me, and talked to her for like 2 minutes. And then he said, it was nice to meet you, Penny, used her name, and then left. And my mom came over, the next day or whatever and said, I don't know what those Lyman parents are teaching, but that was the most polite. He looked me in the eye. He shook my hand, and she said, I haven't seen that in years.
Wow. Well,
and I just thought that was pretty cool. And my mom still, to this day, he's 16 and she still talks about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, like, well, first off, I've never heard that before. So I appreciate you sharing that with me. It makes me feel like I'm maybe doing something right not everything is failing, but and I don't know if it's like my profession or whatever it may be, but like I'm huge on communication, like relationships and communication. I just think is like it's a skill set, and it's a gift that just oftentimes is taken for granted everywhere. Like I wasn't the best student, probably like a lot of people got by in high school, went to college, did okay, but I wasn't going to Harvard, right? Everywhere that I've got in life, business, entrepreneur, anything, all boiled down to two things: communication skills and my relationships. Like that's it. I've got every door has been open because I was willing to like talk to people and people that I actually knew. And so, I mean, if we're talking to young entrepreneurs or whatever it may be, like take those two things extremely serious, be willing to show up for people, be willing to create and connect meaningful relationships. Don't take people for obviously granted, and be willing to talk to, just about everybody. Like, my wife was giving me a hard time about this the other day because one of our daughter's friends, their dad came over to pick her up. His daughter had spent the night at our house. Okay. And I was like, I haven't met him yet. I want to go talk to him. Heard a little bit about him, but I'm like, I haven't ever met him. Went out, talked to him, right? Talked to him. Well, here's what I ended up finding. Okay. Here's a guy. And so first off, we had a lot in common as far as like working out. He's like 10 years older than me and 10 times in better shape than me. So that like made me mad. I was like, I need to get my act together. Owns an investment portfolio, buys condos, gets investors, not condos, but apartment complexes, raises money for apartment complexes. The guy we ended up talking for an hour, and, like we totally hit it off. We created a connection on things that both of us were super excited about and we love to do, working out. And then it led into like just other conversations about professionally. And that all kind of stems from one, I actually really love connecting with people. Number two, I'm willing to connect and create, communication. And now,
and number three, that you're invested in your kid enough to say like, well,
that for sure.
Right. Like who is this girl? Yeah. But then also who is, I want to know, we like her. She's in our home. She's sleeping over.
For sure.
But we also want to say like, hey, and your dad means something to me because he's your dad. So let me go and meet him.
Yeah.
So once again, it's those relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And I could have easily just been like, okay, hey, your dad's here. Go out. Like, no, let me take a minute. I didn't mean to sit there and talk with him. I mean, it started like drizzling. We still kept on talking. I ended up talking to him for an hour out in the front yard. Just awesome guy, that I would have never had the opportunity of meeting if I wouldn't have, I'm not saying, oh, wow, me, but I'm just saying, if people, or if they're willing to open up and like talk to people and create connection, I mean, a lot of doors open up for people in their life. I believe that for sure.
And to just be that authentic person that, like you said, cares about other people. Yeah. I think it kind of circling back to our kids, I think that when we can show them that being authentic and caring about other people, that is what creates relationships faster than Snapchat or Instagram or anything like that.
Yeah.
It is a way of communicating, but the intensity and the meaningfulness is different when we can actually do it in person.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah.
So in the last couple minutes, tell me what you're really looking forward to in the next couple months. Because like you said, you're kind of transitioning in business. You got a lot going on with family stuff. So what are some things that you're looking forward to?
I'm really excited. Well, first off, like July, we get out of Texas, right? Yeah. So I'm really excited.
107, I think 107. Trace said. So yeah, you got to get out of Texas.
Yeah. So I'm going through some, shifts right now from a business standpoint. And last couple of years has been, been on the grind and been working towards some stuff. Really, really excited about being up in Utah, nice weather, hanging out for a week. We're going to take some time off. And then at the end of the month as well, we're going to Florida and taking another week off and going to, so July is going to be a good month on spending time with family and friends. Then at the flip side of that, working on 2 of my main businesses. I'm working on a remote solar cells agency that I've started with a really good friend. It's already starting to take off. And then I have my own sales training platform, the Sales Syndicate, that I have clients that I'm working with that I'm really excited and passionate about. And I'm wired kind of weird, like anything that's leads and sales, and
you're all about, you love it.
I can stay on back-to-back sales calls and train, for 9-10 hours a day, and it doesn't bother me. It's what I love.
Tell me a little bit more about Sales Syndicate, because I do think that is an interesting kind of thing that you've been doing and that you've been creating for a while now.
Yeah. So Sales Syndicate, I do a couple different things with the Sales Syndicate. So somebody that wants to get into like sales, I sell a program where I teach them on how to do appointment setting, because in the digital marketing space, that's a great place to actually get into sales, doing appointment setting for businesses. Most people in the digital marketing space, they're able to generate like appointments, but where their real gap is on the ability to generate even more appointments. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes there's a lot of missing appointments in the appointment setting standpoint. Business owners don't have the time, resources, understand how to hire and train appointment setters. So I teach people that want to get into sales how to become an appointment setter, how to do what's called a triage call, if it's a 2-step sales process, and then how to actually close deals. Mm-hmm. So I have a program on training and teaching them, and then I work with business owners on actually placing sales reps, but then also coming in, hiring and training out processes to help them to scale and grow out their businesses. So I'm constantly training sales reps, and then I'm placing and working with business owners because it's what they actually need.
And it's so you're the person to do it, right? Because you already have, like you said, you're the one that's training, so that you can say, hey, I have this really great person that is going to be a good fit for you. So
yeah. On the sales training side, people may ask, like, well, why would you charge somebody to learn this skill set? Like, why wouldn't I just hire them and then teach them the skill set? Well, one, if I'm providing a service that enables somebody to make phenomenal commissions, I'm gonna charge for it. But it's not my core business of where I make money. Mm-hmm. But I've never been a big fan of giving something of value to somebody for free because they don't have any skin in the game. So we charge a nominal fee for me to be able to train people on how to do sales. If you do that, at least they're going to actually show up and they're invested and they want to learn. We make more money on like the placement side and helping them to get in. But part of the reason why we have to actually train them and work with them is that because we have a short period of time on as soon as the person starts working with that business owner, they need to have some foundations where they can actually come in, start taking calls, start producing results in a very short period of time to make it work for the business owner.
Right.
Because if I were just to hire and train people that were completely brand new to the space and they're expecting to get, a business owner is expected to give them calls that cost them, let's say on a paid advertising standpoint, $250 to $300, and they're not,
and they're training.
And they're training and they're not closing anything. It gets really hard for the business owner really fast. So they need to come in and have some of the skill sets to be able to produce results out of the gates.
Well, and from a sales standpoint, I think that that's kind of where the market is going, is that businesses are looking for sales people that are trained in sales, right? Like you said, it makes more sense to them when they're paying for advertising dollars to be able to say, yeah, we're not training you, because we have people like Steve that are out there doing the training for us and then just basically funneling us people that can already do it. So
most businesses are very similar in a lot of senses, and most businesses, one of their biggest expenses is like turnover. Mm-hmm. It takes a lot of time and energy and effort to take somebody that's brand new doesn't have a lot of experience, hire, train them, get them to the point where they're actually making money, and then retaining them and keeping them engaged culturally. It's a very, very expensive process. So if you can take somebody, plug them in, right, start doing well out of the gate in an offer or a product or service that sales rep actually enjoys, loves, and wants to be a part of, that learning and churn cost ratio significantly goes down.
That's awesome.
Kind of a no-brainer for them.
That's awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here. We could talk all day.
It's fun. Yeah.
So fun, right?
Yeah. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for being here. And how can people find you online?
Yeah. So probably one of the best places you can go on Instagram to like the Steve Lyman, on Instagram.
Great. It's the Steve Lyman.
Yeah. That's my Instagram handle. Probably one of the best places on there. I have some links to like my website and even a Facebook group that I have on sales as well. So that's probably,
which is a great resource for anybody that's looking to do any sales. That Facebook group is awesome. So awesome. Well, let's go and barbecue.
Let's do it.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to this podcast episode. If you're ready to get in the driver's seat of your own life, you can come and follow me at Drive Your Thoughts Coaching on Instagram, or come and see more ways to work with me at driveyourthoughts.com.
Yeah, whether ready or not, life's coming hard, no breaks, no stop. And if you put me on the spot, don't get it twisted, I never drop. If you feel a bit out of control and out the box, here's a way that you could drive your thoughts. Turn this podcast on, it's a lock. Carrie Marshall on the clock.